Back in with the second YouTube of the prep series. So I think the last one was about between 1 and 2 weeks in. We're now 6 weeks in. So overall 30 pounds down. So it's moved pretty well. Just got through like a little bit of a bout of illness. So it's been a little bit rocky for that period. But obviously now we're back feeling fresh. So we're going to hit push today with Paul, who's my training partner. But yeah, 6 weeks out, no shows actually planned as of yet. We have like a rough sort of like time scale. So it's just a case of I'm going to do the shows when I'm ready. I'm not going to push myself to try and make a certain sort of time cap because I've done that in the past and not quite had the condition I want. So for me, this year is big in terms of like hitting a condition that I've never hit before, which for me, I have to do if I want to be competitive. So we're just going to leave until we're about looking 4 or 5 weeks out, then get the shows locked in and start the season from there. So we're going to be doing a push session today. With this session in particular, we only have a small volume for chest, a bit more high volume with the delts. Tom wants me to bring my delts up, so it's something that we have a little bit higher frequency on because we actually have delts on another session as well, on the upper session. But it's allowed, Tom's like sort of said what kind of exercise we need, but I've sort of picked the profile of movements and what kind of movements we're going for. So today I'm pretty much going to take you through why I've picked certain movements and why I feel like they're better for me in particular. So current training volume, we're not pulling back right now. We're sort of, energy levels are still pretty decent and the calories still enough to sort of support the training we have, like where we started the prep, we still continue with that same style of training. We might start pulling back volume, I think, if we start to get a lot of fatigue, like if, I'm not quite able to take the sets to the intensity I want to and be able to recover from them, then we might have to pull back a bit. But generally we're doing 2 sets across most things, but some of the areas like my weaker body parts, like delts, for example, we're putting an extra set in there across a lot of them, especially with like a small movement like a side raise. It's not too physically demanding or taxing on my nervous system, so I can cope with the frequency and the recovery from that. Yeah, but we will be doing a couple of higher rep sets after as well. It's a good movement because there's consistent like connection on it. Like I think some people with like dumbbells struggle to maintain a consistent sort of tension throughout the whole movement. So the profile of movement changes quite a lot as you work for it, especially if your technique's not good as well. Whereas this, at every point of the movement, you've got consistent tension. So I feel like I get a lot more work done. Not saying I don't like a dumbbell side raise, because I do, but it's your ability to perform it. Whereas this machine makes it much easier to perform a side raise, especially if you like have mobility issues or you have a tendency to sort of throw the weight backwards or sorts, that stays in that same position so you can't physically throw it back. Because you see some people when they're side raising, pulling back into a side raise, it's a bit of the rear delts rather than actually using just the delts, whereas this you can just keep that same profile and line of movement consistent throughout. So great exercise for laterals.
Nice. Good. Nice. Come on. Come on, push.
God. And try sweep out as wide as you can, that's it. Good. Paul would be a good example of someone that would maybe struggle a little bit with a side raise because a little bit of mobility restriction means he kind of pulls into it as opposed to sweeps away, whereas with the pads, he can try focus on actually physically pushing that elbow as far away from the body as possible to keep tension on the delt, but as you get further away, maintaining that same position, you put more stress on the delt as well. So it allows him to get much more range and much more tension. Well done.
Come on then, mate, everyone.
Wow. So got a little bit of a YouTube exclusive. So the Conway files. Now, should you be logbooking, and when is appropriate time for it? So for me, I've not always been someone that logbooks. I actually used to think it distracted me from my session. I think it's absolutely fine to do, as long as you don't create an emotional attachment to it. There's far too many times I've seen, especially the younger generation, they come with an expectation to lift certain weights because they're trying to progress an off-season, for example, or they might be in a cut and they want to try and maintain the lift, and they don't get it, and then they, they have a paddy, throw the book on the floor, and it kind of ruins the session. And for me, it's like, it's very, very circumstantial. Like, there's so many variables, unless you're someone that's able to literally do the exact same routine day in, day out, get the exact same amount of sleep, good quality sleep, all the variables in and around it, it's very, very hard to just, in certain circumstances, try progress every single time you do that specific lift. For me, as long as you're working through to that intensity, working to that failure, and you maintain the consistency with that, you're going to progress. Even if maybe 1 week you get a couple of reps less, it could be maybe you've had less sleep, maybe more fatigue. If you've got kids, family, it can impact that. So I think a logbook is great as long as you treat it with the right sort of respect, rather than thinking it has to be a consistent progression, because in reality, that's just life and it just doesn't work like that. But use it as a long-term tracker. So if you're progressing over a longer period of time, you're doing the right thing, you work, and if you're in off season, that's correct. And if you maintain the lifts that you wanted to in a cut or a dieting phase, you're doing a good job there as well. But don't create too much emotional attachment to it, because it'll just ruin your session. So, Smith machine next. I sort of recently switched this back in, so I've been having issues with dumbbell pressing more just because of my wrist. And it's getting better, but whilst I was dumbbell pressing, it just wasn't improving at all. So I've tried to be smart and manage around my injuries. Same with my quads, modify the training so I can get consistent progression and not injure myself as often. But Smith, really nice piece of kit, just purely because we can keep our elbows in a locked position, just focus on driving through the pecs and the chest. And sort of like a low incline as well, rather than being flat, just to take a bit of stress off the shoulders. But it's been a movement I've been consistently able to progress, hence why I like this as a movement, because I've been able to progress it literally near on week. So if you are thinking of movements of choice for your programming, an exercise you can progress on the overload and progress every week is very, very ideal. So also improve the circumstances around my injury and hopefully get it sorted, whilst changing exercise selection to take stress on my wrist. I have started introducing some BPC, which sort of serve two purposes. So I've got a slight elbow strain and obviously bad wrist, so putting it into the elbow, give a bit of elbow grease. But no, to help improve and speed up the recovery capabilities. It's something I use with my hernia, and I was back training quite quickly after I had my hernia operation, so I found it was very useful. So a good smart tool to use, especially if it's preventing you from being able to train to your maximum capacity. If it allows you to get back to it quicker, then for me, I'm completely okay with using it, especially being assisted anyway, so it makes sense. The thing to sort of note when, any pressing in general, especially for your chest, is no matter how heavy the load is getting, and maintain that same elbow pathway. Because you see a lot of people, when they start to struggle, say if I'm laid down, they start to flare their elbows a lot, and that's where it starts to shift into the shoulder, starts to irritate you. And because your pecs are obviously loading that, if you shift into a smaller part of the shoulder, you are going to injure because it's just too much load. So regardless of how much I'm pressing, I always press with the same technique, and I try, if it starts to change my technique, then that's the set done for me, because as soon as I change out of that, I'm not working my chest anymore. So whatever the load is, maintaining that position is key. The reason why I'm using a logbook at the moment, I use it towards the back end of my off season. That's when to ensure I was making the most out of the end of my off season with the amount of food I was eating, starting prep. I wanted my numbers to be as high as I could get, and having that incentive going in before sessions to actually progress it or try at least maintain it. It just gave me that little kick up the arse to make sure I was locking in with that. And obviously, if I had more in the tank, I was taking it. 6 weeks into prep, still using it, because it's a good indicator for me, not from an emotional side, but more just so I know I'm trying to attain the same level of training, the same intensity, and not slack off. But like I say, I expect at points I may drop, like when I was ill, I dropped a few reps. They came back up, sort of clarification and confirmation that I'm feeling better and I'm getting past it. So for me, I just use it as data. And for my own personal use, it gives me sort of like a good guide of where I'm at. But again, I have an expectation that it could drop off, and I'm fine with that. But it's a good time for me to use it right now.
Nice, Kieran. Come on, Mike, squeeze them out. With me then.
Yes. What's your thoughts on it?
On what, mate?
Like resistance profiles?
What do you mean?
Like changing this, for example?
It just gives you a good variation, doesn't it? Like a different way to hit the muscle, that's all.
I think for like, because people have more advanced with training,
Yeah.
that changing the resistance profile, I think generally fatigue in the contraction, don't you? So for someone like us who can train to that kind of level, it means we can probably fatigue in that stretch on the contraction at a similar point. So that's why I think they're good, but also from an injury perspective, you struggle with that stretch, you can change it, can't you?
Yeah.
But
well, if you think how I used it on the leg extension, with the stuff through my knees a little bit, I made it easier at the beginning.
Yeah.
The same when I was struggling a little bit with bicep, made it a little easier at the start.
It means you can do the full range of motion, can't you, without putting too much stress in certain areas. But I think you get some people that will just change on the machine to make it really easy.
Yeah.
Like on it, you can make it easy at the top, and it looks like you lift a lot of weight, but
as well, you can put the seat as far as it goes.
Yeah.
You know, you
change the way, catch the tension, 100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good little tool to use. It's like using a band, I guess, at points.
Yeah.
But no, quite good. I love that close grip. Yeah, I think for the general population, there's no real need to use it. But
put it in the middle.
I guess if they're aware of it, though, they can use it to adapt so they can sort of suit injuries and stuff like that. But you know, like someone that's got like really, like Kev, for example, he struggles at the bottom position.
Yeah.
You could take the load off there a bit and try and encourage him to sit deeper into it without being in pain.
Good, come on. Good. Push it, Kieran. Come on, Mike. Well done. Come on. Hello, Mike.
Why is it squeaking?
I don't know. I noticed that this morning.
So strive shoulder press, obviously third exercise in, it's a sort of big press for our shoulders. Really nice because obviously it converges, so as you're pressing it comes closer towards the top, so it's like a bit of a pyramid at the top of the movement. You just find you cross over the shoulder joint a bit more, so you're squeezing for the front delt a little bit more as well. So it's a really nice, well, we find it's a really nice movement. Obviously you've got the side back shoulder press as well, which is converges, but for this, the resistance profile we can adjust, so we can do it to suit where we sort of need more benefit at different parts of the movement. So yeah, really nice piece of kit.
Nice, Kieran. Come on, mate. Squeeze it through. Go on. Well done.
God. So I think there's something to be said for intent with movements. So you can see when people are training, some people just throw the weight around. So like I can make this hit my chest and work my chest as full as I want to by controlling the tempo I'm moving at, and also the intention of what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to physically squeeze as hard as I can at the top, and also allow the deepest stretch possible while still remaining safe as I can to get the best stretch of my chest. And as you can see, I'm moving this with slow control. If I wanted to, I could bang it out faster and make it move, but I'm then losing a lot of tension from my chest. I'm not having the intent to just work my chest. I'm just moving, shoving the movement from A to B. And that is the difference between bodybuilding and like powerlifting. And if you're trying to maximize muscle progression, being able to actually specifically go, this is what I'm trying to hit and this is how I'm trying to move it, rather than just shifting from A to B, and makes a massive difference in progression over a long period of time. So drive, good. Brilliant, nice. Come on, nice. Brilliant, awesome. Nice that, well done.
Go on, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. Well done.
To you. Give me a pull out.
Yeah. Come on, push.
Thank you. God, that was heavy. Wow.
We went 10 for the average person, yeah, in terms of what they're doing. Big stretch.
Big stretch. There you go. Brilliant. Notice how you can open up a little bit more every rep.
Yeah.
Nice. Good, Paul. Come on. Brilliant. In with a old school bodybuilding chest fly. So people don't like dumbbell flies because they feel like there's not much tension going on here. But for me, like in the rest of the session, we've done a lot of pressing, we've done a lot of movements where we're fully contracting. I like this because of how deep the stretch goes. And you could argue you could do like a machine fly where you can still get the contraction, but I'm able to position my elbows into a position where I can take that past the normal sort of range for my stretch through a dumbbell. So I really enjoy it. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it if you're able to control it, feel safe at the bottom, and push into that extreme range of motion to create more stretch. There are no wrong exercises if executed properly. It's all down to your body mechanics, what you feel you're able to get the most out of in terms of a stretch or a contraction. It's whatever you can do with that movement. So if you're preaching that a cable fly is better and you're able to stretch and get the full sort of full range of motion with a stretch and get a good contraction with it, that's absolutely fine. Whatever the movement is and the reasons for, as long as it is positive towards you progressing your physique, that movement's absolutely fine. So when I'm flying, if I was using, say, like a pec deck where it's fixed in a certain range, I couldn't adjust that position to take it further. It would stop me at a certain point because of the angle of my elbows. So for me, with this, I can just adjust the elbow position to allow myself to sit as deep as I physically can, and I can change that range with the dumbbell positioning in or out because I can use the dumbbells to do so. Whereas if I had a pec deck or a cable fly, because of the movement profile that's set up, it might not allow me to adjust it exactly to that depth. So for me, a dumbbell can take it past that sort of normal range of motion safely and make sure I'm getting the most out of the stretch. Nice. So a big thing with spotting like your training partner is making sure you're able in them to continue that same movement pattern. So if I give Paul a spot when he's struggling, I want to be pushing through his elbows, so I encourage his muscles to still do the same movement. So when he starts to struggle, I will still allow him to feel that movement. So I'm trying to squeeze them elbows for him to make sure he's contracting the chest, rather than just take the weight for him and take it off. I'm trying to encourage him to do the same motion, just give him a little bit of support to continue that full movement. So when you are spotting someone, especially when it's a movement in isolation, you want to try and allow them to finish the rep or continue the rep as they're set out to do, rather than just sort of putting up and taking that tension off them. So we're going to go in with a single arm side raise. We're usually using a machine again, just nice and easy to sort of work with, nice and fixed, keeping tension. You can kind of like lean into the position and get a little bit more sort of range on the delt as you're moving for that motion. But again, another delt exercise because a bit more volume on my push day for delts. Chest, we just do 3 exercises. Delts, we tend to do 4. If it's 3, it's a lot higher volume on each exercise. So going to go with a side raise. Fucking hell. Oh, my wrist. Just a couple of length and partial at the end. Or some body parts that I need to bring up. I'm chucking an intensifier on it so I can sort of still get a little bit more work, a little bit more volume. And whatever I can do to elongate that set, whether it be partials, drop set, a couple of pauses and slow negatives. I'll add in, especially like I said, on them smaller muscle groups that need a bit more work as well. For example, a tricep push down, which did a set to failure. A couple of partials in that same position. I just adjust the position so I can get a little bit more range as well to finish that set off. And it just helps me get a little bit more work done. So with a muscle round, not always commonly used, but quite good again to get a bit more volume done on like a good level of load. So a muscle round tend to be a 6x6, around 10 to 15 second rest per every 6 reps. And the idea is by that sort of like 3rd, 4th and 5th and 6th set, you are sort of struggling to finish them reps off. And what we do is, if we can't finish off, we just pause for a second and then try and get another rep out or partials to finish the set off. Fucking hell. 6x6. Yeah, 6x6. If you're struggling, just so I did quite a lot of either overhead sort of tricep extensions, whether it be in a skull position or like a rope behind head or an overhead dumbbell. Because when I'm hitting like a front double, especially like in the beginning of last off season, notice I need a little bit more in the actual tricep sweep when I hit in the front. So anything where you're doing an overhead stretch and hitting the long end of the tricep is obviously going to benefit you in that pose. So hence why there'd be like a frequent sort of consistency across all the sessions in off season and in prep. Bottom of this one, I always do, you know, like if you're trying to show your tricep,
yeah, just a little twist, yeah. That's not rare, I'm like that. I can eat anything, I get fat as fuck. So, it's push session done. Gonna go head off and do some posing. Posing has become like a regular feature now, sort of doing 2 or 3 rounds after sessions, 2 or 3 rounds with fasted cardio in the morning. So we'll have a quick look at where we're at. Obviously 6 weeks in, plenty of work to do still. But with 30 pounds down, show you on screen the progression over that 6 weeks. But yeah, thank you for watching and subscribe if you can. Let's go.